see that the meeting is now streaming on live on YouTube.
Vincent, we're recording this, right?
Yes.
And then it'll be on the website. Someone chatted me a question.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to get started. Welcome to the Eastern Pennsylvania Branch ASM meeting. My name is Vincent Tam. I'm one of the co-program director with John Secular. Today is our Norman Willett Memorial Lecture organized by our Education Committee. This is our 779th monthly meeting. And this is our last one for the 2019-2020 academic year. And it's been quite a challenging year, half a year so far. And we just want to thank everyone for your participation to make this a success, to keep our community together and continue to pursue our scientific knowledge. And so we have been using Zoom as a virtual meeting, and today we're also, for the first time, live streaming to YouTube, so we can reach more colleagues that way. To look forward to better and greater things, we'll resume our meeting in September, and it's going to be our 100th year celebration for the branch. So we'll have some great basic science talk as well as some clinical talks. So without further ado, now you're probably all experts in Zoom. As you can see, you're all muted at the time, and you cannot be unmuted by yourself. You have to be unmuted by one of the meeting hosts. And let me see if I can show this. And if you click on your participants or the chat panels, you can ask your questions with the participants. You have a little blue hand to raise your virtual hand. And then one of our co-hosts can unmute you to ask your questions via your microphone. Or you can type into the chat panel, and then you can ask the questions that way too. The first time we'll actually run a poll. This will just show up on your screen, and then you can answer the questions to have more interactions. As you can see, there's a practice poll for you to pick a number between 1 to 10. So take a couple of seconds for that. Yeah, so that's pretty good. So we can also share the results. So number 7 is the most popular number. So without further ado, Pina Fratamico is going to introduce the speaker. She's our treasurer, secretary, as well as a part of the education committee. So thank you very much.
Okay, I hope everyone can hear me. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending today's lecture, the annual Norman Willett Memorial Lecture. Dr. Norman Willett passed away in 2014. He was a longtime branch member, and he served in various leadership positions, including he was treasurer, vice president, and president, as well as chair of the branch education committee. I have to say the current co-chairs of the education committee are Bobby McHale and Cynthia Keller. So Norm was very passionate about microbiology and in communicating his enthusiasm to others, including his students, colleagues, and administrators. He kept educational issues alive in the branch, and he lobbied to have one of the branch monthly meetings focus on microbiology education. He was honored as a distinguished branch member. So each year in June, the branch holds the Norman Willett Memorial Lecture. I certainly feel very fortunate to have known him. And I'm also very pleased that attending today's lecture are Susan and David, Norm's children. Very pleased to have them. So now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for this evening. Dr. Sandra Urdaneta-Hartmann is currently professor in the Department of Microbiology and Immunology and the director of the Center for Business and Program Development at the Institute for Molecular Medicine and Infectious Disease at Drexel University College of Medicine. Since 2012, Dr. Urdaneta-Hartmann, also known as Dr. Sue, S-U-H, to her students, she's been overseeing the implementation of online learning in the Department of Microbiology and Immunology at Drexel's College of Medicine. By 2016, under Dr. Hartmann's guidance and leadership, the Department of Microbiology and Immunology went from 0 to 7 online and hybrid MS programs. These include a series of 4 interdisciplinary degree programs in biomedical technology commercialization that Dr. Hartmann designed and currently directs and teaches in the programs of Master of Science in Biomedicine and Business, Digital Media, Entrepreneurship, and Law. Dr. Hartmann has also led the teams behind 2 award-winning science-driven mobile games focused on cell entry mechanisms of HIV and Plasmodium falciparum, which are respectively called CD4 Hunter and Malaria Invasion. A third mobile game that teaches about the replication cycle of hepatitis B was released in 2020, and it's called Hep Beware. These games are free downloads on the Apple and Google Play app stores. The digital game-based learning initiative was featured in Dr. Vincent Racchianello's This Week in Virology podcast, episode 489, on EdSurge, and in Philadelphia's WHYY's The Pulse. Dr. Hartmann received a 2014 Outstanding Online Faculty Award from Drexel University Online and a 2018 Best Professor Award for the Interdisciplinary and Career-Oriented Division from the College of Medicine's Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences and Professional Studies. Her team also received an honorable mention in 2016 from the Academic Division of the International E-Learning Association for their work on converting a face-to-face online graduate bacteriology course into an interactive online course. Prior to a career as an innovative educator, Dr. Hartmann was a preclinical and translational researcher of microbiocides to inactivate HIV in breast milk, which was funded by the NIH and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. She was also the CEO of a startup company to commercialize this technology. Dr. Hartmann earned an MD from the University of Zulia in her native Venezuela in 1998, a PhD in microbiology and immunology from Penn State University, and an MBA with a concentration in entrepreneurship from Drexel's LeBeau College of Business. So today her presentation is on e-learning approaches to microbiology and infectious diseases education. So let's all welcome Dr. Urdaneta-Hartmann.
Thank you very much. I want to make sure that you are seeing my screen with the title of my lecture. Could somebody give me a thumbs up to see it? Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you, Pina, so much for that introduction. And it is an honor to be here today, especially in such a historic day where Pennsylvania and New York is reopening in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. We have yet to see how things are going to shape up and how this will actually affect our teaching in the future and higher education in general. So hopefully you will find my presentation today timely and helpful, regardless of how our education system is going to adapt and evolve. A lot of what I'm going to talk about is transferable to other forms of teaching, not just online teaching. So I am very thankful for the opportunity to be here and share some of this experience that my team and I have had. So there's four main areas that I plan to touch upon this evening. There could be many things that we could talk about teaching online, in particular in our discipline, but I chose these four areas: face-to-face versus online workload, especially for the faculty, factors that are going to impact the quality of our teaching online, and essential online student interactions and maintenance of academic integrity. In the course of my presentation, I will give you some examples of effective ways we've achieved these different points in different courses. And I will also very briefly mention a little bit about the mobile games that we developed. We practiced the polls because for me, it is also the first time using the polls in Zoom. So I love experimenting, and I think that's a big part of online teaching. So these polls are anonymous, and it's just a way for me to interact with you and vice versa, because unfortunately we're not in the same room. So this will be a way of virtually interacting with each other. I'm sorry that those of you joining via YouTube, you can't participate on the poll, but hopefully you will share in my excitement in finding out what the answers to the polls are. So the first poll that we are going to do is for me to know what is the experience of the audience teaching online. So if you could just take a few seconds and tell me what is your level of experience. It can be based on what you have done so far, obviously, and we'll just take it from there. And you're welcome to skip the vote if you don't want to. That is perfectly okay. So I'm gonna end the poll now and share the results. So it looks that we have a little bit of everything. We have most of you here are newbies or wannabes, which is great then that you're here. I hope you find this useful. And some of you are still developing, and some, just 6 of you have consider yourselves a pro. Well, the good thing is, let me make sure that I stop sharing the poll. The good thing is that I have been in all that spectrum. I consider myself now quite experienced, but I certainly don't know everything, but I've been at every portion of that spectrum. So as Pina said, you know, I was before 2012 just focused on HIV research in the lab, and my only teaching experience there was occasional and in the undergraduate level. I would teach entire courses and they were all just face-to-face. And then in 2012, we established the Center for Business and Program Development. And my main task at the time was to crystallize 2 important visions that the Department of Microbiology and Immunology chair had. And it was 1, to develop and implement online learning in the department. We had existing programs. He wanted us, Dr. Brian Wigdall, to convert them to online programs as quickly as possible. And he asked me to please take charge and orchestrate that. So not for me to teach and develop all of them, but to work with the faculty to make that happen. And then the second was what was perhaps a pet project, but that has grown since then. And it was to develop educational games, mobile games specifically, to teach about infectious disease topics. So in the course of this time, definitely there has been quite a bit of an evolution. So in 2013, I had never taught online, and but I had been in a few online courses as part of my MBA education. So I had a little bit of experience on the receiving end. So in 2013, the first thing I did with my colleague, Michael Nonamaker, was teach a hybrid parasitology course, because we were in charge of teaching the face-to-face version, but I needed to learn how to use the learning management system and different tools. So that was our first experience there. And then by the following year, we had, it almost seemed, you know, impossible, but we did within that 1 year develop the fully online first program, the MS in molecular medicine. The year after, the MS in infectious disease and immunology both followed. And by the following year, then the other 4 programs, the interdisciplinary MS programs in biomedicine, were also rolled out. And simultaneously, then we were working on the game development initiative. And between 2016 and now, we rolled out the 3 games. Then 2020, COVID-19 hits, and then the last set of graduate programs in our department, the MS and PhD in microbiology and immunology, was quickly transitioned to online or remote teaching. And I wasn't involved in that, but our team, the instructional designers in our team, were definitely instrumental in facilitating that as well in our department. So what I'm going to talk to you about derives from my personal experience involved in either assisting in developing one of these 7 online or hybrid programs that the Department of Microbiology and Immunology offers, or in my own teaching in these programs, and that of my colleagues who have also graciously given me permission to share some of their great samples of work. So I'm going to proceed with the presentation, and I'm going to leave time at the end to ask questions. I know somebody's monitoring the chat. So if you want to put a question there, that someone will take care of that, take note of that question. And then in the end, I welcome the opportunity to hear your voices, ask me questions, and hopefully I will also learn something from you in the audience, from the experiences that you have had so far. So here are a few caveats. I've only taught graduate students online and only using Blackboard Learn. And I realize that there are many more tools or approaches than what the brief sample I'm going to share with you. But the idea is that these concepts are applicable to higher and lower levels of education and also to other instructional formats. And then to supplement this presentation, I curated a list of resources that I have found useful in developing my courses and others that I've been interested in exploring, but maybe I haven't tried it or that others have recommended. And that list will be made available as a PDF document that you will be able to download from the branch's website. So let's start now with our, in all earnest, with our second poll. I want to know if you think, either based on your experience or if you suspect that teaching online is more work or not than teaching face-to-face. So let's see what you answer. And you can guess if you don't know, or just respond honestly. Well, I hope you're honest. All right, so what we see here, and I'm going to share the results. Overwhelmingly, there is a totally agree, followed by I somewhat agree or disagree. I am going to say that I totally agree with that. That was a shocker for me when I started. So there's really great interest and care in making sure that the content that we develop online doesn't overburden the students, but also that it's not below the level of expectation for the course and the credit hours that they have registered. So it is very straightforward to estimate credit hours for a face-to-face program. But for an online program or course, it is not that straightforward. So the way it is done is by estimating the total number of student engagement on task in the entire set of activities that student needs to complete that week. So online, obviously, we can't separate the in-class versus the out-of-class activity. So it's the total engagement time. So here is an example for a 3-credit course that runs a 16-week semester. For a 3-credit for a week, the student is expected to spend approximately 9 hours completing all the activities associated with the course, from reading, watching videos, participating in discussion forums, and any other types of activities that you include. Now, the reality is that for us, the instructor developing that week of content, it'll take us at approximately 10 times that amount of time. So this is in my personal experience, and I have consulted with my colleagues in my department that also do a lot of online teaching. So they are also seasoned at this, and they agree with me. So this includes the time that you will spend reviewing, researching what you're going to include in your topic, developing a script, a slide deck, developing instructions to post online, learning activities, the whole gamut of everything what that student will do. And it does not include the time that you will have to spend to facilitate the discussion that week, to do any grading or any office hours or other ancillary activity related to this topic. So
excuse me, Sandra, I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's Cynthia, but your slides aren't advancing. Should your slides be advancing?
They're advancing at my end.
They're not advancing on Zoom for a lot of people.
Let me try to share again. Let's see. Can you see the faculty workload?
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's the slide where I was at. So please keep me posted if it's not working. I appreciate it.
Okay, sorry
The-
to interrupt.
The previous slide showed the workload for students. Did you see that? The previous slide showed an approximation, an estimate, because a lot of this is estimated for the workload for students. One rule I use to estimate, at least for the reading assignments for the students, is that if it takes me 1 hour, it might take them 3 hours to read a technical paper, considering that they don't have the level of expertise that I would have. So then this is, I think, the slide that you hadn't seen. And it's kind of like the distribution of the time for faculty that are developing one topic for a week from scratch, all new content, not dependent on a textbook. And by that, I mean not using the learning resources for instructors that the course assigned textbook would have. And that is a practice that we favor. This is something I learned from our instructional designer. Chris Atkins is our senior instructional designer, and she has really encouraged us to do that, and we've seen the value in doing so. And I will explain why in a moment. So the important thing is that for this amount of work, this 80 hours per topic, we don't need to do it alone. I just mentioned Chris Atkins, our instructional designer. Our instructional designers are our partners in this. So seek the assistance of an instructional designer. You might be someone that only knows how to use Microsoft Office and PowerPoint, have not had learning experience, and maybe even limited use of the learning management system or knowledge about how it works. I know that when I started, I had never even touched the learning management system because I didn't have to. I taught face-to-face, and I only went in at the end to just put in final grades. I didn't know how to use it at all. But the good thing is that the instructional designers become our partners, our best friends forever, because they will help identify those knowledge and skill gaps that we have and guide us through it. They're there to help us succeed in this. And it is a true strategic partnership. And the secret sauce for this strategic partnership to succeed and develop great content in a good amount of time, in a decent amount of time, is respect for each other's skills and knowledge and time. So there should be no concern that, oh, the instructional designer is going to totally change my course. This is my course. This is how I've always taught it. I'm the subject matter experts. Yes, instructional designers understand that. But what we as faculty need to understand is that the instructional designers are experts at their skill too, at designing a course, at figuring out what would be the best way for you to translate this activity that you've been doing in your course for the last 40, 20, 5 years, or that you're thinking of doing in your first course. When you explain it to your instructional designer, he or she will go and find resources and make suggestions, and you brainstorm together. All of this takes time. That's part of that 80 hours that I was mentioning. So the thing that you then need to decide is, how am I going to manage this time? Because no matter how special your instructional designer makes you feel because he or she helps you right away when you're in an emergency or something, keep in mind that you are not the only person that the instructional designer is supporting. You're one of many, maybe an entire department or more than that. So oftentimes we need to provide, if we want the instructional designer's full support to put everything on BB Learn for us because we don't know how to use it, or maybe it's our first time, we may need to submit all these materials, all this content of what I want for my course 2-3 weeks in advance. Now, I don't know about you, but I usually don't work on preparing for a lecture or an online topic that far in advance because during that time, well, I'm dealing with other things. So I am the kind of person that works on this closer to the due date of my teaching. But by then it might be too late to expect the instructional designer to drop what she's doing or he's doing and take care of your course. So that's when you need to figure out, well, should I learn how to use the learning management system and other platforms that I'm using in my course? Okay, so that's the fine balance. So you will have to also spend time within that 80 hours to learn this. And eventually, once you learn it, it's practice and it's just second nature. Because honestly, if you know how to type in Word and in PowerPoint, you can learn how to do some of these things directly in the learning management system and just type it directly there. I don't handle everything in the learning management system. I don't know everything. I still rely on my instructional designers. They build a course shell. There are things with the Grade Center. There are things that I just don't know how to do. But these simpler tasks I can take care of, and so I can work in my own time. And it's good for them too, because it frees them from me so they can go and help somebody else that might need that assistance. So you have to think about that. So some time saving suggestions that I have, like I said, discuss as soon as possible with your instructional designer and try to become a do-it-yourself with the learning management system. Learn some tricks so you can troubleshoot some of your own things. Then the other thing, it doesn't sound like a time-saving suggestion that I'm actually telling you spend 80 hours or consider spending 80 hours or so to develop a brand new from scratch topic rather than using the instructor notes or materials that come with your textbook. The reason I say that this investment in time up front will be a time-saving approach is in the long run. Because again, another wonderful nugget of wisdom from our instructional designer. Because what if after you're done, you're like, no, I'm going to go with the instructor's material because they're there, they're easy, it'll be faster, I can get it done now. But then there's a new edition of the book, or they discontinue, the book goes out of print, or you find another book that you like better, or you decide altogether in the future, forget the book. I'm going to teach based all on primary literature. So then all of a sudden you have this topic that even if it took you a fraction of the time, it was still your time that you invested in that. And now you technically can't use it because that's not the assigned textbook anymore, or it's out of date. So if you work on using materials that are freely available, that are not linked to a textbook, and there are some out there, this may not be possible for all courses, but for many courses, you can do that. I would encourage that. That has worked well for us in various courses. The other thing I suggest, now let me dial back a little bit. I realize that with the impact of COVID-19, nobody had the luxury of 80 hours to work on a single topic. So this is, keep in mind, this is in the ideal scenario, looking forward. Okay, right now you probably can spend some extra time to go back and redo or update some of what you had to do. But in the ideal world, this is what you would be looking at. So the other thing that I recommend and that we've implemented is try to not date stamp your content, your durable content, like videos, podcasts, those that you can actually use more than once. So that's what I call evergreening, because the moment you incorporate in your video the data from the paper that just got published yesterday, that right away you've already date stamped that, and by next term it may not be the hottest, latest thing. And you will now have to redo, re-edit that video that took you who knows how many hours to put together. So what I like to do is put the unmutable content of my courses in something durable like that. And then use other areas of their learning management system to put these other elements that I like to update every time each term I teach the course. And then, of course, assess the student workload at the end of the term or halfway through the term, because chances are you're going to have to tweak this. We never get it right away, and we may not even get it right by the third time. So we're always constantly tweaking based on new things we learn, new technology, feedback from the students. So listen to the students, what they're saying. If you don't have enough, well then come use the time to brainstorm new activities. And if you have too much, see what you can weed out. So yes, more work, but now let's see what is our next poll. Do you think that the quality of the teaching is less online? Do our programs suffer? Do our courses suffer if we teach them online? And does online teaching limit connectivity with the students? Okay, so I think there's still some votes coming in. All right, the majority has voted. Oh, still we have some more. So 84% has voted. So let's see. Share the results. So for the most part, we somewhat agree or disagree that, or you agree or disagree that the quality may suffer and the connectivity may suffer. And I will agree with you on that one too, because the answer is it depends. It depends how you teach your course and how you carry your course, how you designed it, and so forth. And so that's what we are going to work on in the next, or I'm going to share with you in the next few slides. So how do we maintain this quality? Because there are ways to measure the quality of a course and evaluate if we're keeping up with the quality expectations for a course. And if we do some things, we may be able to not only offer a really top quality online course, but what has happened to us is that we've realized that we've even become better face-to-face instructors as a result of implementing some of these quality metrics and assessments. So there are 4 quality factors that impact quality in a course. Okay, so the first one, of course, is us. We're the subject matter experts, and we're passionate about our subject, or if we're not, we better start loving what we're teaching. Sometimes we teach what we love, and sometimes we start to love what we teach. Either way, we have to be passionate, approachable, and be motivating and engaging our students. We have to teach our students what's in it for them. My instructional designer taught me that acronym, the WIFM, what's in it for me. Students need to understand, why do I want to get into this course? Students sometimes, especially like in COVID, they were forced to go into online teaching or learning, and it wasn't their choice. So we needed to really work on motivating students that were in that situation, and obviously be aware of the time demands that this requires. So make time for it. And also then evaluate the content that we're delivering. It has to be up to date and relevant, focused and aligned with the learning goals and course goals and learning objectives. And best of all, try to make it reusable. That ties in with what I was just saying. Try to not link it to any particular textbook, or I don't even put the course name or number in my materials, because sometimes I reuse certain portions of my content in other courses where it's also applicable. Then there's the course design. Again, the course designer is a really important piece in the puzzle. And it is our course designer's role to help us figure out what's the best way to deliver this content, make it interactive, develop a learning community, figure out what's the best way to package it so a student can consume it in multiple different platforms. If your instructional designer supports your entire department, then even better, because then there's going to be more uniformity and consistency across all the different courses that your department offers. And so the students don't have to keep relearning things. So that has been really wonderful that we have this opportunity in our department to have a lot of consistency in that sense. And then the other piece of the puzzle are the other support systems that should be in our institution to support our students. The academic support for the student, which includes some of that falls on us, give guidance, instructions, good feedback. So it's not just giving them the content and showing up, but also reacting to them, responding to the student. Plus then the administrative and IT support, because there will be technical issues. The good thing is that oftentimes an instructional designer can help troubleshoot that. But if the instructional designer doesn't know, they are a great liaison with the IT department and will help solve this problem. All of this needs to be evaluated constantly and adjusted as needed. So at this point, I'm going to show you some examples of what we've done. So this is an example of the parasitology course that I mentioned. This is the version that Dr. Nanamaker Cordigari and I taught in the academic year 16-17. And what I want you to see here is that organization and the detailed instructions that we have to do and the difference between face-to-face and online. We taught in both, this team taught in both the online and face-to-face. And at that time, we were able to cross-list courses, which I really loved that we were able to do that because it really saved me as an instructor time, and it allowed more interaction among the students because from time to time, we brought both sections together. Unfortunately, at our institution, we're not allowed to cross-list anymore. I don't necessarily understand the reasons, maybe about concerns of students becoming confused, but that wasn't the experience we had, and we did it for numerous years. So if in your institution, you're allowed to cross-list two sections of the same course, you can find creative ways in which you can even cross-list both the face-to-face and the online. Now, this is a very early iteration of the course. This was in the old Blackboard system. Really no bells and whistles. What we were doing at the time, this is when we were ramping up so we could roll out the online program as soon as possible. So the goal was to have the content really well organized, not so much the beautiful images or so, but our courses today look very different from this. Thanks to now we have the time and our instructional designers work on creative ways of making the interface more appealing. But the organization is quite similar. So you see, we have all the instructions here, both the face-to-face and online read the same thing. The face-to-face students watch the presentations rather than me giving a lecture when I see them in class. And only then I have two different sets of instructions when it comes to the discussion of the research paper that was assigned. And not to read word by word here, but what I want you is to compare the left side of the screen with the right side of the screen. The left were the instructions given to the face-to-face class to discuss the exact same paper in the exact same manner, same topic discussion tasks were given to them to do at home before coming to class, and then we would do the discussion in class. On the right side, then, is the exact same paper, same topic discussion class task, but you see how much more detail we had to put in the instructions for face-to-face students. And that's important because we're not always available to answer the online students' questions. So that takes time to write that additional detail for the online students, because they needed to know what to do before we started the asynchronous discussion in the discussion board. With the face-to-face students, then we went and did a flipped classroom. And that was great because I had more time to interact with the students in class and discussion. There was more student-student interaction also in the class due to the discussion and student course content interaction. So these are the three essential types of interactions that need to exist in an online course. But as you see, they're also important for face-to-face. And me, I'm thinking, hey, this is working well. I am reusing this online content again next year. So I recommend that if you've developed any online content this spring, think of ways in which you can incorporate it in your face-to-face if we go back to face-to-face teaching. So none of this is in vain. It really helped us be better instructors and make better use of our face-to-face class, or class time. So what are some tips for quality control? Of course, above and beyond, stay in contact with the instructional designer to think of what needs to be done or tweaked, or how it's going to be designed. Always assess those 4 quality factors regularly in your course evaluations. And if you're new at teaching online or thinking of starting, well, take an assessment to see if you know, where are your knowledge gaps there in terms of technology. So Penn State has a really good faculty self-assessment for first-time online teachers. So that's one of the resources in the downloadable PDF that will be available in the next day or so for you. So, and then identify the knowledge gaps and get the training and support that you need. Your instructional designer will help you with that, with identifying that. But, you know, don't forget that we are a crucial piece of this quality. So we need to show the passion and the love for what we have, but then not cut corners with the instructions. Give them really, really clear instructions. And they don't have to be in writing. You could, you know, make a voice narration, you know, deliver the instructions in any which way you like best, but make sure you have them there. One thing that we've learned over the years is that if we minimize the number of instructors in the course, it is better for the students. Students prefer having fewer professors in a course. I know in graduate education, it is common to have large teaching teams, but what we found is if we cut it back down, 3 is the ideal number, but we try to stay, you know, we're working our way towards minimizing our teaching teams, because this way we can maintain more consistency in the quality. Inevitably, even if all those instructors are supported by the same instructional designer, there's going to be variation. So if you're a course director, you know, then it's important that the more people you have in your team, the more you have to keep them together, because again, the student doesn't have direct access to your instructors. So you need to really work as a cohesive team. And if you are a team member, then you have to make sure that you know, stay in contact with your course director, ask the person that taught before or after you, just to make sure that there is a good flow in your topic for your weeks that you're there. And of course, revise and reuse as much as possible or as needed. So, okay, so we went over the 4 factors. So now let's look at the essential interactions that a course needs to have to ensure that that quality is there. And at the same time, if the course was designed in an excellent manner, you will achieve these interactions as much as possible. Okay, so there's 3 types of essential interactions: student course, and student, and the faculty with the student. And the faculty with the student is with the class as a whole, but also with the individual students. So let's look at each one individually, and then I'll give you some examples of how we've done that in our courses. So the student content interaction refers to the way the student is going to consume the content and then digest that content. So we need to give different options to present that. So these are the concrete interactions with the learning material. Now, notice that I'm not saying interactivity. It doesn't have to be interactive. I just showed you an example that was not interactive at all, but it is the way that it's the user interface between the learning management system and the student, and how you're presenting the information within there. And then what prompts and you're going to give to help the students digest that and implement, adapt, learn the concepts and ideas. There's many different ways of doing that. There's some listed here, but you know, it can be through audio, through video, podcasts. But in any event, the best practice is to make it in short segments. I've done short podcasts, so that's just audio content. Say I interview someone and then produce it as a podcast, or a narrated presentation, or a video. Keep it short. So if you have a video from last year's class, it's great because that lets you jump into the online learning quickly. But you should be looking at, can you edit that? Or can your instructional designer help you with the editing and find where you can cut that into smaller versions? Because students online should be able to control their content, pause, rewind. I need to listen to that again. My professor's not here, so I didn't hear that. It's a new term. So it's good that the student has that ability to stop, take a break, take notes, and then come back. That's pretty much standard practices right now. And anything that encourages learning. So even a quiz at a low stake graded assignment is, but only if you give them really detailed and useful feedback. And we use that. We've implemented that in our courses, and our instructional designers won't accept a self-assessment if we don't give them feedback. So it's really worked well because the students use that as another learning opportunity. Then the student-student interaction. So we can have that personal connection, and it can be done through formal course-related interactions or informal interactions, more like the social kind of interaction. So I personally love group projects. I use them all the time and include a self and peer evaluation that's anonymous, but that is part of the grading. So that way I know that everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing and everybody is held accountable. And in the course evaluations, the students have really liked that even though it's an online course, they have an opportunity to work in teams and interact then outside of the class in their own Zoom rooms or FaceTime or whatever. So that gives them an opportunity for that. Of course, asynchronous discussion boards are our bread and butter. So that's a given that they're going to interact there. And I also like the peer review of some assignments. So I give them something to do and ask them, you have to review, give feedback, substantiate that feedback with material that you've read or concepts that you've learned. And then I can always come and give my own feedback and grade it. So overall, this fosters a virtual community of learning and connectivity. And the students seem to really appreciate having those opportunities rather than feeling that they're just doing their course locked in a closet by themselves. So the last piece, which is essential, then is our interaction as faculty with the students. I know that's one of the things we probably miss the most from teaching face-to-face, but I will say that I have really gotten to know my online students so much better than I ever got to know my face-to-face students, because I would see them only once a week, see you next week. If they spoke in class or so, they stood out. If not, they didn't. But in the online environment, everybody has to show face. Everybody has to be present. And so we need to be present as well as professors. So it is required, because otherwise we're a correspondence course, and that actually has implications concerning student loans. So we want to make sure that we are present. And email is one of the best ways to do that, because email is the primary mode of communication. So yes, respond to email immediately. We probably don't do that with most emails, but when it comes to an online student, the sooner you respond, the better. Sometimes it's an emergency. Sometimes it's an emergency in the sense of a technical thing. Hey, Dr. Sue, I can't see, I see the discussion forum, but I can't access the thread. Well, that wasn't their fault. It was me that I put it there and then forgot to uncheck a box. And so it wasn't accessible to them. The fact that I replied right away and within 10 minutes, I got back, apologized, and said, there you go. The students replied with a fabulous thank you, lots of exclamation points. So the sooner you respond to a student's request, especially if it's a valid request, the better. Provide meaningful feedback. Participate in the discussions. The discussions should be for students to communicate with each other, but it is our role to facilitate, make sure they stay on point. And, they know that we're listening and watching and providing additional knowledge or clarification. I like the synchronous sessions. So in my courses and several other courses, we have mandatory synchronous sessions. And one of the things I'd like to do with that, especially when we all got put in lockdown, it was a really stressful time for everyone. And I was speaking with a colleague and saying, every little thing counts. We're all stressed. We're all cooped at home. So one of the things that I decided to do was to on the dates that we have a mandatory synchronous session with a guest speaker or something, I'd say I send a course announcement, hey, I'm going to open the room 15, 20 minutes early. Why don't you come and join me? And let's share what is our favorite kind of music. And we just talk about something random like that. And then the next time is wear your favorite t-shirt and tell me why. So it's those little things. And the students overwhelmingly all came early and had all these stories. And we were in a happier mood than for learning right after that. So that really helps. I'm a fan of the weekly announcements. I don't like to send those as direct emails to students. Instead, I use the announcement tool in the course, because that way it goes to the email, but then it also stays permanently in the course unless I make it unavailable. So if a student did not check his or her email, he can go and check out the announcements. So let me show you here a couple of examples. I'm really, really proud of this example. This is a bacteriology course that won that international award for converting the face-to-face to online bacteriology. And so I'm going to show you an example of an interactive PowerPoint book that Dr. Elise Mosser developed. So Dr. Mosser and Dr. Bernoulli, they work as a team. They teach in the online and the face-to-face. They've split their roles, but they really work interactively to make the two courses almost two of the same, really. And so this is a content that Dr. Mosser developed, a PowerPoint book. As you can see, now we've gotten a little bit fancier because now we're embellishing, adding the bells and whistles because we have time for that. And you can have a human touch in your course by putting, a talking head, talking to the students, make sure it's organized. This is, provides a lot of instructions of what to expect, audio areas in the book. So really lots of details for the students to follow. And it still has its animations. Students can interact and get response to whatever they click. So this is an example of an interactive way of delivering content. This, by the way, is going to take more than 80 hours to put together. This is much more work. You can embed in this knowledge checkpoints and get feedback right away. So once you've gotten more comfortable, and then you can start experimenting. A lot of it is experimenting and being creative. So the students really love this. And it is a beautiful product. And it's no wonder that it really allowed us to earn that honorable mention in that international competition. So delivering content doesn't always has to be with reading, with or PowerPoints or so. This is the digital game-based learning initiative is something new we're experimenting with, we're evaluating. It's not meant to replace any of the other modes of delivering content. It's just meant to supplement. And in any event, just to make learning fun. Because learning can be fun still in higher education, right? So what you're seeing here is a video of playtime of CD400. That's the first game we developed that's focused on the attachment and entry mechanisms of HIV. So this is one of three mobile games that we've developed. They're all developed in-house in the Institute for Molecular Medicine and Infectious Disease. And it's taken us a lot of intensive work, but within 6 to 9 months, with the skill of an undergraduate co-op student at Drexel, we've been able to produce this. And it's really neat. I'm not going to go too deep into how we do this, but it's been really a nice interdisciplinary program that we were able to establish once I first with the professional enrichment grant that I was awarded by the College of Medicine and funds from our department. We're very fortunate that our department chair is very creative and entrepreneurial and allows us to explore some of these original things. So yeah, so these games are available. You're welcome to download them, try them. Some colleagues are using them as extra credit for their course. We have a colleague at the Department of Biology who has been implementing it in her undergraduate courses. So large classes as an in-class activity. And my colleague, Marianne Caminali, is leading then the game-based learning research to assess the learning through the game and whether or not it improves learning. So that manuscript is in preparation. In fact, I have the draft in my inbox as of this afternoon. So look for it, hopefully soon to come. In the meantime, you can, if you're interested, you can look up this review paper that we published a couple years ago in Microbiology Letters, and that gives a nice overview of game-based learning in higher education, specifically in science. So finally, one of my other favorite ways to humanize a course while teaching students how to use technology that will be used in our course. Again, this was 2 months ago in the midst of COVID. This was another one of those attempts. Let's do a little thing to cheer ourselves up. So this is a platform called Padlet that allows you to build kind of like a poster board and a multimedia poster board. Right now here we have all pictures, but you can put video, audio, etc. And I just asked the students, okay, let's create a poster board of the pets of the course. Everybody submit your pet, share something about your pet. And the students love it. I just love seeing how more and more were getting added. They would come back, they would like a post, they would comment on a post. And the good thing is that at the same time that they were doing that, they were then learning the skill on how to use this platform, because at the end of the term, they had a graded activity in which they had to do a virtual research poster presentation, like the kind we would take to a conference, but they would do it virtually using Padlet. So it shot two birds as one. So there's always many ways to humanize a course. So right now I'm going to shift what I'm sharing, because for the next example, I really want to show you something I've been implementing in this course, Biomedical Career Explorations. So it is not a microbiology or infectious disease course, but some of the things that you will see here are transferable to that. So I mentioned how much I like the assignments, the announcements to send content. I like to send it at the end of the week, you know, like wrap up, this is what we did, this is what's coming back, and stay in the announcements, because that way I am present. But here's something I wanted to show you. And it's called, I call this the website, etc. library. So in this course, the students don't have a textbook. There's no assigned textbook. I did recycle a topic from another course that was relevant. And instead I have them work, find resources to read in the website, etc. And sometimes they even suggest things to put in here. So as you see, I have 236 different web sources in here. So when we do a topic, instead of having them do a web quest like at liberty, like go Google something and come back and share it, I have curated a list of relevant websites, multiple per topic, that they can come and research here. So if I tell them, okay, this is this week's topic, go to the library in the course, find an article, read about it, and then respond to the discussion prompt. If students pick different papers, and it makes the discussion more interesting. So because they each bring something different of their interpretation of different readings. So how can this be applied to a microbiology or an infectious disease course? Well, you can create that library of research articles and websites that are relevant to your course. You can put them here. So you go back, you develop the unmutable content that's not going to be date stamped, because that's harder to update than this. This is very easy to update, remove, add new ones. So if it's a seminal paper, yeah, by all means, put it there. But the latest paper, you can put it here, put a link to it, to the abstract, and then have the students look it up in the library. But here you're curating all the relevant material that's important for you. The other thing is, I noticed that sometimes discussion boards are used kind of like just for writing assignments. And then that's the end of it. There's no interaction, no prompt. So I kind of got tired of just discussion board. So I tried this this semester, a graded wiki. So like Wikipedia. So this is something that the students are working on the whole semester. I gave them instructions. So for this week, I gave them a starting list of career paths. The course focuses on non-academic career paths. And I said, well, pick one. I want you to develop the equivalent of a Wikipedia page for that career path. The first week I did it, I didn't give them clear instruction, and it was kind of like all over the place. So I learned, experiment and learn. So I decided to give them a sample. Okay, this is how I want you to organize your page. So kind of looks like a Wikipedia page. You can insert links, etc. And then I told them each one create one, and it'll take more than one day or so. And so each of these other pages that you see there have each been created by an individual student. And in some cases by more than one student, because they collaborate in it. And the goal is that for this particular course, we're creating a repository of different career paths. And then at the end of the course, the term paper is for them to identify one possible career opportunity that they think works for them, and then develop the goals. What are the SMART goals that they need to take to get to that position? So now it's like crowdsourced, just like Wikipedia, this content developed by students. They come back, they can research here, and then go and work on that term paper. So I really love this, and this would be something good that to probably try in, say, in a course in which you're researching different diseases. A student can pick a disease and create a wiki page, or a pathogen and create a wiki page, and then develop an end project in which they go back and use it. The students also then have to go to the discussion board and discuss there, based on a prompt that I've given them, the research that they did to put together their page. So I'm really liking how this is coming together, and I wanted to share it with you, even though it's not directly a microbiology or infectious disease course, because I think it's applicable. So finally, our last poll. We're reaching the end. So our last poll is, can academic integrity be reinforced or not? So do you agree that academic integrity cannot be reinforced in an online course? By the way, thank you so much for participating in the polls. I really miss seeing all your faces, so at least I like seeing the bars going up and down here. Okay, we have 80% of the votes in, and it's somewhat agree or disagree. And I would go with that answer. I'm in that team too, because a lot of it depends on how you're going to design this. Obviously, there's nothing like being in the same room with your student as he or she is taking a test, but there are ways that we can ensure academic integrity in our exams, in our written assignments that are submitted. So let's look at the differences, some of the advantages and disadvantages of doing a totally online exam. So one of the things I like of online exams is, well, there's a variety of question format. Of course, you have that in the paper exam too. I like that I can randomize all the questions in the same exam. So every time a different student comes in, they get the questions in a different order. So there won't be any chit chat like, what did you choose for number 2 or something like that? Because, well, number 2 might be different for different people. There is a disadvantage that there's not a proctor required at all sites, but the students can take the exam whenever they want to, so long it's within the window that we've indicated. And the exams can be graded immediately depending on the type of questions that we choose, and automatically feed into Banner. So that's also a time-saving tool.
Sandra, I'm
Yes.
sorry to interrupt again, but your slides aren't showing again.
Oh, bummer. So let me try this again. Are you
Okay,
seeing online? Okay, great.
okay,
Maybe there's something with the polls that after I run the polls,
maybe.
it just doesn't reshare. So thank you for letting me know.
Okay.
So, but there is the possibility to still proctor exam and ensure or be more assured of integrity, but there may or may not be cost. And some are probably more effective than others. Okay, so when we started with the parasitology course, that was really our petri dish to test different things. We started using a third-party live proctor called ProctorU. That is at a cost. So at that time, we haven't used it. Our department hasn't used it in a while because eventually our faculty learned about other options that BBLearn had, such as Responda's lockdown browser, and Turnitin. So, and they or just, you know, send them with take-home exams. So they've gravitated more towards these options. But ProctorU offered us live remote proctoring, and it was all done through the student's camera, and they validated the identity of the student. It was really, really well done. Some students were creeped out by having someone looking at them through the camera. But overall, in my experience, in my course, it worked really well. At that time, the cost was like $25 per student for every 2-hour exam. So obviously in a large class, this cost might not be feasible. And so it may not work. I know now they have other services that that don't require a live person. So there may be different price points there, but that's something that could be considered for really high stake assessments. Our faculty has tried and liked using these other versions in BBLearn. These tools are available through BBLearn, so there's no additional cost. And the nice thing with Turnitin is that it also works well for just a written assignment. It is a key tool to compare the submission with, against other published digital sources, and including other Turnitin submissions that other instructors at other universities might have submitted. So it just like that student that snatched that E. coli paper from the web and submitted it, well, you might be able to pick it up here if that indeed happened. Now there's other free alternatives. Copyscape is one that allows you to detect then student to student duplication. So Turnitin has to be something that's been published and it's available on the web, but sometimes it's a student that copycatted another student. So this allows you to put in both of those contents and then look at the similarity between the two. And we have faculty that have successfully used both of these tools to identify plagiarism. And, we really recommend them, and they have worked well for us. Then there's Grammarly. Grammarly, I love Grammarly. I use it myself because when you type so much, I call myself the queen of typos. So, and especially when you're teaching online, you're constantly typing. And so typos are bound to happen. And one of the things I like with Grammarly is that it integrates with your browser and with Blackboard. So when you're typing in that text box, Grammarly will be checking there. So we recommend Grammarly a lot to, for example, international students that don't have the best English writing skills or mechanics. We recommend this to them because it really helps in improving their English as they're working in the course. But also for just anyone, it's really great. So I haven't used it yet for the plagiarism. The plagiarism comes with the paid account, so I haven't used that yet. But I just wanted to share that resource there to let you know that it's available. So, okay, so we covered quite a bit of territory here. So what are some key points here that I hope you remember when all this is said and done? You know, it is challenging it's hard to teach online, especially if you haven't done it, especially if you haven't had the training to fill in those knowledge gaps or those skill gaps, or if you've had to just rush into it because you had no other choice. But the good news is that with practice, you get better, you learn more, but it takes time. Remember that your instructional designer is your partner. I love my instructional designers. Shout out to them. I think one is here in the course. I'm sorry, in this Zoom meeting. So I really love our instructional designers. We realized that they were such essential pieces to ramp up our mission to deliver these online courses that we needed to bring that skill in-house. So while we started working with the instructional design team at the institutional level, we decided that we needed to bring instructional designers into the Center for Business and Program Development. So now we have two dedicated instructional designers. I thank them for the work they do for us and all that they've taught us. So we have the 4 quality factors that should be evaluated: the faculty, the content, the course design, and the support system. And these go hand in hand with the 3 key interactions that our students need to have in the course. And as we keep this in mind, when we develop this original from scratch, new as much as possible, when time permits, keep all these interactions and quality factors in mind as you work and put that 2 week at a time work for a new topic. And your topic is going to be fantastic if you kind of like follow these pointers, and then you're going to want to reuse it as much as possible. And if you missed some, then you go back and you tweak it, you evaluate it. Once you've had a chance to get some feedback from the students. There's also rubrics out there that you can externally, you can self-assess your course or your topic to see if you're meeting these factors. So make sure you keep that in mind. And don't forget that you can have a human touch, even if you're through a screen, even if you're asynchronous, you can have that personal touch in your course through formal and informal interactions. So the challenges we had in 2013 and the concerns we had when we started with our MS in molecular medicine program are still valid today. Some of these questions we're still dealing with. We've improved in many aspects. Some we're still improving in, and others we're still figuring it out. So part of that is because technology changes. There's new things to try. There's new research that supports new approaches. So think about this. You're not in this alone. We're all still learning, and the learning never ends. But I think, and I hope, that some of these tips are useful for you moving forward. And with that, I really want to thank you all for being at the other side of this screen. And I think we can take some questions.
Okay, I have to go back through the chat, but we have a couple questions.
Or if people want to ask questions.
Michelle had a question. I'm concerned some faculty do not have access to instructional designers. Can you speak to resources that faculty can access to help them get started, tools, or remind them that the universities may have instructional designers in other parts of the university?
That's a fan. Oh, go ahead.
I'm just going to add to that. I'm at a small university. I don't think we have instructional designers.
Or you can be like me, that I was in a big university with an instructional support team, and I had no idea that people with those skills existed and with that role. So right. I have put together this curated list with some tips that I have found useful. It's a good starting point, I hope, and it will be posted. It's organized by topics. There's web links there that you can click on and visit. And from then on, you can essentially go down the rabbit hole on the internet, because there's so much information online that can be helpful. And I hope that that list will help you. So that will be available to get started. And if you don't have an instructional designer in your department, find out if there's a centralized system in your institution. Maybe there's one that's an instructional design team that supports the whole institution, and at least make an appointment for a consultation to like check things out, get some feedbacks and tip on what you're doing.
Okay, so next there was 2 questions on labs. So how do you adjust the labs? Are they all through gameplay? And how do you have, without the tactile experience, how do you design a genuine microbiology experience?
Yes, and that's an excellent question. And that's definitely a limitation. And honestly, it's one that I didn't address in this presentation, because since, like I said, the caveat, we teach graduate students, so we don't have many lab courses at this point. Our students do have internships, and some of them are internships in research labs for our online students, and students that choose to go down that route. You know, it's different. It's for them to experience research in a laboratory, and they oftentimes identify one in their area, in an institution in their area, and that's how they fulfill that requirement. But yes, it is much more challenging, and unfortunately I don't have that experience. But there is, and in the review article that I mentioned, and that it's also in that resource list, there's a section on simulations. There's some simulations there. They've come up with some really, really cool, I've been to some conferences where I've seen some really, really cool simulations using virtual reality, that can be done in the person's own home using their own phone. But I don't have experience with that, so I can't really speak to that. And I'm sorry about that I can't give any additional information.
Okay, and so this is the last question as far as I know. In the courses that were cross-listed as online and face-to-face, was there only one Blackboard site for both?
Yes. So I'm going to try to answer the best I can, because that's one of those things that I know how it works, but I didn't do it. Our instructional designer did it. So there's a parent course created, and then the 2 sections become the child courses that feed into that parent shell. And so as the course instructor, I only have to go in and work on that parent shell. It's the only one I have to update. So don't put anything into those child courses that go into it, because then it's not going to be visible to the whole group. Just forget that. I actually took out that screen because I just for brevity in the presentation, but you can see when you log in your cross list and the child courses beneath it, at least in Blackboard, and then just make sure you go to the parent course.
Does anybody else have any questions for Sandra? I haven't seen anybody. Kata says, thank you for the answer. That was very clear.
Well,
that's it. We want to thank Sandra again. Thank you for participation. As she mentioned, the resources will be posted on the website. And so in a couple of days, you can go on and look at those as well.
Thank you so much again for this opportunity. It's been an honor. I hope I honored Dr. Willett, and I hope that you found some of the information I shared useful.
Thank you. It was very informative.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.